Genevieve, the last time we left you, you were hunkering down in an apartment shortly after at least a couple of individuals were either seeking you or seeking the missing Raphael, the former leader of your cult. The trudging footsteps have disappeared. You can't hear any hammering on any doors. The old woman who had given you sanctuary doesn't seem to be in any rush to send you away, but at the same time there's a sense of awkwardness at this point. How long do you really stay here?
I think at most I stay only for a few minutes to make sure that everything is alright. Then, I give the closest cat a bit of a scratch before thanking the lady for the sanctuary. And then I think it's time for me to return to the cafe.
As you leave the apartment, you can actually see one pair of boot prints quite clearly on the floor outside the door, trailing mud in, which is unusual, you feel. There doesn't appear to be any mud. It's not been raining terribly outside. Just a bit strange.
I'm gonna assume that it might be the soldiers, so I'm hoping that there are tracks that are also leading out, or perhaps...
Unfortunately not, but it's quite possible that any water or mud that was on the boots has dried since.
I feel like I have to gamble and leave.
Exiting the apartment complex, you can't see the two soldiers that were on the other side of the street when you initially arrived, the ones that you distracted with the burst fire hydrant. You can see old man and old woman pushing a pram along. Just a bit further up the street. They don't appear to be paying any attention to you.
Then I will pay no attention to them. But I do try to take a different route back to that cafe, just to be safe.
As you're meandering your way through the streets, you're hearing a bit of hubbub. There's a few people gathered around outside taverns on corners, generally talking. Have you heard there's a raid? There's a raid going on somewhere in town. There was a great mobilization. I saw a couple of armored cars go past.
Can I listen into that conversation a bit?
Yeah, sure. Are you just listening in, or are you trying to ask any questions? You don't know the people.
Yeah, so first I just try to listen in a bit and see if they continue to talk about it.
It's spoken in snatches. I wouldn't like to be on the receiving end of whatever's going on over there. Maybe they found another member of the resistance somewhere in Paris. It's disgusting. People fighting back against the Nazis. They took over. They have the jurisdiction here, is what one man is saying. Don't be absurd. Paris is French. It's right for the French to fight back. You shouldn't say that out loud.
That's dangerous to say then. So I kind of walk up to them and say, "Excuse me, did you mention something about a raid?"
The person who was speaking in favour of the resistance walks away very quickly, leaving you with a man, tall, bit gangly, wrinkled across the forehead. He furrows his brow, wrinkling it even further. That's right, there's a raid. Saw about 5, maybe 6 cars heading in that direction. You know how the Germans like to look all dressed in black.
Oh, yes, of course. I mostly just want to ensure that I don't really get caught, that I don't get in the way on my way home. So, did you say that it was in that direction?
That's right, along the Seine away. I heard that they were heading a little further south. I do not know whether there are any cars coming from elsewhere in the city, but they must have found something of quite some importance. You would be right to head in the opposite direction, little madam. As you say, it would not be good to get caught in the middle, especially if guns start firing. You know how indiscriminate these Nazis can be.
Indeed. Well, I will thank you very much for telling me this, and I pray that you also stay safe.
Oh, no fear, little madam, I will be going back inside.
Is it in the direction of the cafe?
It is indeed.
Oh no, I have a really bad feeling that it might be some problems with Herr Philippe, Master Philippe, so I have to go there.
You head in the direction of the cafe, but in doing so, you catch sight of Marcel. Marcel, you were heading out of a bar, were you not?
I was escorted by an exuberant gentleman who promises me that he alone, well, doesn't know necessarily where Raphael has been taken, but knows where he was taken from, I believe.
That is right, monsieur. I do know where Raphael was taken from. He was at that bar, the king said, just the other week, but I know what happened that caused his being snatched up, and I can show you. You and I, we are the same. We have similar problems in this city, I believe.
Marcel sort of narrows his eyes a little bit at him, looks at him. Problems? What problems does?
Oh, monsieur, I do not like to go too far into it, but as they say, the days and nights are a struggle for Paris right now, no?
Well, an associate of mine was supposed to meet me. I'm slightly worried she might have been caught up in something, and Marcel was sort of scanning around, looking towards the square where he'd agreed to meet Genevieve.
We do not have time for that, monsieur. You must come with me. You can meet up with your friend later.
But I told her I would meet her. I can't just. He seems to be really struggling with the fact that, you know, he's given his word to her that he would meet up there, and is at the same time his loyalty to the cult is sort of pulling him along with this other guy. He's quite clearly divided between those two, I suppose, aspects of his personality, aspects of himself.
Monsieur, time is of the essence. If you wait for this woman, I will be heading on without you. For all we know, there are people in the King's Head that are going to report back to the Gestapo that you met with me.
Fine. You've made your point. Quickly then, come on.
He takes you along the banks of the Seine. You walk past the sluggish waters, walking alongside. It's a sorry sight, this formerly a great channel of water. It's been left to ill maintenance over the last couple of years, and where once French flags hung proudly over its waters across the bridges, now they're interspersed with the flags of the Nazis. It's a jarring reminder every single time you see them that this is an occupied territory, and who knows what the long-term fate of France will be. For your companion's part, he doesn't bat an eyelid.
Marcel walks with his head down. There's three sorts of people in the world, if you want, in his opinion. The brave men who died and who went off to fight with General de Gaulle and all the rest of them who managed to get out. Basically the people who put themselves on the line. There's people like his companion here who essentially can just turn a blind eye to it all and just focus on what it is they want and what it is they have to do, whatever that is, because he doesn't know this guy or if he's genuinely interested or not. And then there's people like Marcel who put their head down, who are disgusted by what's happening, but are simply either too afraid or have too much invested in their own life and aspects of it to really interfere with something much bigger than themselves. So he turns his eyes away from these symbols of power, not wanting to remind himself that, I suppose at least in his mind, it's partly his cowardice that's to blame for those symbols being flown in his beloved city.
You're suddenly brought to a halt. This man's palm on your chest. Take a look down there, monsieur. He points down at the river. Some of the water by the banks. It looks darker, as if something's been spilled into it.
Marcel, he starts sort of by looking the other way, if you want, trying not to be too obvious about everything, and then he sort of just turns his head back, almost nonchalantly, in the direction that he wants to look in, and just looks that way for a moment.
This is the place that your Raphael last was. Come, follow me.
Okay, he feels like he's been dragged on by this guy, but he goes nonetheless.
This is where Genevieve spots them, heading quite literally down the embankment. She can move on, head toward the cafe, or try and catch up with Marcel, who is with a man she vaguely recognizes. Could you do an intelligence plus occult roll, Genevieve?
8, 9, 7.
Very nice. Good success. Genevieve, you definitely recognize the man he's with. It's only just occurred to you. It's like a flash of memory. This is a face you feel you haven't seen for almost 2 centuries. It must be at least 150 years. You've seen this face before. Very distinct. The angular features, the blonde hair that at a time when so many were wearing wigs was a natural, healthy throw of hair. Yeah, you would recognize that anywhere. And he's leading your cultist companion, the leader of your cult for the time being, down an embankment toward the Seine.
I feel like I have to follow. If I hadn't recognized the man, I would probably just have moved on, assumed that Marcel is doing his own little investigation and that he's too busy. But the fact that I recognize this man, I have to go. There might be something else that I remember more about him once I can hear him speak. So I kind of walk briskly towards them and call for Marcel.
Marcel, just as you're ducking down below street level, you hear Genevieve's voice calling out toward you.
Yeah, he'll sort of instinctively turn towards it.
Monsieur, there is no time.
But my friend, I hear her. She shouted my name. And he's sort of looking around to see if he can see her.
You feel a knife stabbing into your side. Not quite hard enough to draw blood, but you would recognize the sharpness of a blade. You felt this before. You come with me down here right now, monsieur. Now, or I will open up your kidneys.
What?
Now, monsieur. No questions.
Well, okay, I'll come with you. Just don't do anything.
He pushes you while maintaining the knife in your side down toward what looks to be a drainage hatch in the bank. He tells you, bend over and open that. Now, or I will cut this into you immediately.
He'll sort of fumble with the latches, so slower than he needs to, if you know what I mean. He will open it.
Genevieve, you have reached the top of the embankment. Due to the slowing down of Marcel, you are able to see this taking place. Is Genevieve attempting to remain discreet, or has she just walked briskly over to Marcel's location?
I would say that she hasn't really tried to be discreet, because that would be suspicious, especially since you called out to him.
The blonde-haired man looks up toward you. You're probably around 10, 15 feet above him. You have the high ground, as it were. Do not try it. Madame, I have a knife in your friend's side. You stay exactly where you are. Why do you not go back to your master,
I will, but I feel like I must ask you. Do I know you?
I am very good with faces, Madame. I do not recognize yours. With the hatch open, he gestures for Marcel. Down, now. There is a ladder. You will climb it. Do not think to run once you are down there. There are more of my companions within. You want to know what happened to your Raphael? You go down the ladder.
He sort of looks at Genevieve, which has got a serious look. He's clearly trying to communicate something with it, but, perhaps don't follow me, perhaps follow me. It's up to you. But he clambers down the ladder. Again, slowly, and he's looking for an opportunity to just whap the knife off this guy.
So I just kind of give the man a little bit of a courtesy bow and then start to back off.
Down the ladder now, monsieur. The blonde-haired man gives Genevieve a nod, a smile, and starts climbing down the ladder as well. Meanwhile, back at the cafe, Le Chrysantheme. At Le Chrysantheme, a scene has broken out. A number of SS and Gestapo have shown up at the cafe due to information that they have received. Something rather unusual and unnatural going on here. Maybe they've heard that it's the home of the French resistance. Perhaps this has appealed to that weird occultist arm of the SS, and they've heard a little more about what's taking place there, a little truth. Whatever the reason, there's at least a dozen men outside the front of the cafe. And as in any standoff situation, they have their guns, they take cover behind their vehicles, and a rich German accent shouts out. The individual in the cafe, emerge with your hands above your head, and we will take you peacefully.
I take a moment to look down at the corpse of the individual whose name I am already beginning to forget, because it was so unimportant. What I do remember is that I gave him a chance to cease the activities he was doing that I have learnt in this day are truly despicable. A chance to be better. He said he had no choice. And I know that in war, yes, sometimes in wars, the soldiers do not have a choice. This is true. And yet he chose once again to betray me. And betrayal, for some reason, stings my heart. Not entirely sure my heart operates as hearts are supposed to operate, but it does still sting. And now these little mortals outside wish for me to come forth and surrender to them. Surrender to these beings who are committing such disgusting acts which I wonder would they say they have no choice. I do not believe that is true. I feel I should have listened to Marcel. I should have listened to Genevieve. Will not make the same mistake again. I shall step outside and invoke, in a low guttural tone, the utterance invoking Tempest's fury at tier 3. this will shortly, in 3 turns, summon a nightmarish storm from the sky above. Nightmarish phenomena will follow in its wake. Rains of blood, plagues of insects, flies, the very dead themselves screaming on the winds. Perhaps even the innocent souls these soldiers have taken will come again to enact their revenge. Ordinary mortals enduring the storm will roll their resolve, penalised by the mummy's shoot rating, which is 5 in my case. Failure on this roll will inflict the madness condition, which will fade a few days, equal to my Sehem rating, which is 8. On a dramatic failure, they will also suffer the insensate tilt. While unleashing this storm, it will last. The storm shall last until the next sunrise, after which its fury will abate and all physical evidence of the bizarre phenomena will fade, leaving only the scarred memories of the witnesses who saw it. And this storm will extend 8 miles. Such is, again, my Sehem rating. Of course, at this moment, none of this has come yet, and I am simply holding up my hands, this strange low tone coming from within.
It's like everything happens in slow motion. You see the Nazi shout again, his lips move for you to step outside. Keep your hands above your... And before he can finish, the tempest, the maelstrom, the storm of gods commences with a crack in the atmosphere. The rumble of hundreds of angry clouds. The breaking of thunder here, there, everywhere across an 8-mile radius from your current location. A sudden torrential downpour, but not of rain, of hot blood, pelting people, cobblestones, roofs, trees, grasslands, the Seine. A howling, cutting wind shears its way through Paris, whipping up canopies, tables, chairs outside of cafes. Even people who weren't holding on to something or duly in shelter get knocked off of their feet. Bicycles clatter to the ground and then take to the sky. The screams of the people unsuspecting all of this hell that's just broken loose are completely drowned out by the whipping screams of the storm, the tempest that you have just summoned. Inclement weather is only a small part of it. You are invoking the power of Sutek, of Zeus, of every storm god there ever has been or will be. Every plague that is associated with foul weather, with the environment turned against the people of this earth. Lightning strikes down mercilessly. It follows no rhyme or reason, no pull of physics. If there is an individual wandering the street, they are liable to be struck by a bolt of lightning that shears again straight through them from head to foot. All of this happens not just where you are, but for miles and miles. Very few people in Paris will ever know the reason for this abhorrent storm, but what they will know is the great period of madness that ensues as a result of it? Is there any flavour that Amassas would add to this furious tempest?
There is the fact that one of my affinities is Jackal's Shade, because as a jackal sometimes I can act as a guide for the living and dead alike. Also, with my shoot pillar being 5, it does say that verbal entities benefit from the open condition while this tempest rages. I'm not entirely sure I know the exact ruling there, but it sounds to me like maybe the spirits can be a little more active, is that right?
Yeah, definitely. You are more in tune with the spirits than perhaps any other, a mummy of any other decree.
I like to feel that as I am summoning this storm, as my emotion runs high, I want vengeance on these individuals. I have been told all day of the crimes they have committed and the lives they have taken. If any of those lives are here now still lingering, I want this moment to be yours. Take vengeance on them, every single one of them. Take vengeance on the lives stolen from you against these tiny, insignificant little worms.
There is an ear-piercing howl that shrieks its way throughout the city, through the entire Ile-de-France, as the frequency of twilight, that plane, if you like, on which ghosts of the dead inhabit, it penetrates our world. It creates a tear through which these ghosts emerge. The restless dead, so many of them, not merely hundreds but thousands of French dead that weren't necessarily confined to Paris, but have returned here, perhaps due to its symbolism. Maybe it's because this is where they lived, this is a place they care for, it's somewhere that they have even tried to protect from beyond the grave and have failed. Being helpless to do nothing but witness the depredations of the Nazi invaders. But now their time has come, summoned by this great arisen, you, Amassas. You can perceive them, you can see them, you can hear every word, every cry of battle, and you are starting to understand them. Just as your ability with the French language was strengthening, your ability to speak theirs, the language of the dead, is right there with you. You see them at first marching down the street in columns, and then running, taking off of their feet and flying towards these Nazis outside Le Chrysanthème. And you can perceive throughout the city similar scenes, every single one of them like a punch to your gut, but satisfying, making you feel alive. Of these invaders being mauled, being possessed, being haunted, being torn apart. They're already enduring a shade of madness, utterly terrifying to them. And now, not only that, they also have the ghosts of the dead that many of them have slain, ripping them to pieces at a spiritual level. Sending them screaming, running, dropping their guns, in some cases tearing off their uniforms as they try to escape this storm of insanity, but they can't escape it. It is too great. As you see the dozen or so men who were stood outside your cafe, until so recently looking threatening, intimidating, they lose their nerve, they bolt, but they can only get so far before they're taken down to their knees, and they're screaming for mercy, being pelted with bloody rain, being struck by lightning, being taken off their feet by the wind, and then slammed into the stones by ghosts. There's a feeling of some satisfaction that ripples through your sahu, your body.
And time passes. And I feel, after a few moments, after that satisfaction, after giving in to my emotions, my calmer side returns, and I just slowly look around, and I realize I didn't intend for this much. No, I didn't intend for this much. I had forgotten the true nature of that power. And I worry, have will innocents be harmed by what I have just done? I think they will be. I want to apologize to someone, but there is no one nearby to apologize to. No one living, at least. So for a moment, I think I just sort of stand at the entrance of the cafe, watching the little mortals scatter, and then looking to the city and the dark storm I have created.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played the adventure Eternal Reward for Mummy the Curse 2nd Edition. Our game master was the gentleman gamer Matthew Dawkins, and we were joined by John Burke and Bianca Savazzi, who are both writers for the game. Mummy the Curse had a very successful Kickstarter and is published by Onyx Path Publishing. The music was made by Beyond the Ghost and was used with permission from Heuschober. Check out their website on cryochamber.bandcamp.com and their YouTube channel for more wonderful dark ambient.
We would like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Nastasia Raulerson, and David, for their generous support.
And we would of course like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want early access to our content and to hear raw versions of our recordings right after we've done them, or join a campaign of Cultivately Lost as a player, please check out our new higher level tiers on Patreon. It's a great way to get more Red Moon role-playing in your life, and to help us keep the show going. Thank you again for listening, and see you soon, again.